In April 1945, 28-year-old German nurse Anna Weber braced for the worst as American forces captured her, expecting harsh treatment or worse. Instead, and within 72 hours, she was delivering an American general's baby in a makeshift hospital in a converted schoolhouse. And what unfolded next forged a 40-year friendship that defied wartime hatred and challenged both sides' prejudices about their enemies. And the real shock came when the American general faced a dilemma. Military rules demanded he separate his family from the German woman who saved their lives. And this isn't just a war story. It's a tale of how one nurse's skill bridged the divide of nations, and with a baby's cry silencing the chaos of World War II. Before diving into Anna's remarkable journey, please subscribe and like this video. By April 1945, the lines of war had blurred. The Nazi regime was crumbling, leaving German civilians caught between retreating forces and advancing allies. And propaganda had painted Americans as ruse and Germans as fanatical Nazis. But what happened when enemies met face to face with life and death at stake? Anna Weber's story reveals an unexpected answer. Anna, born in Munich in 1917 to a Catholic family quietly opposed to Hitler, was no Nazi stereotype, and her father lost his university job for rejecting the Nazi party, and her brother deserted the Wehrmacht, hiding in their basement. And trained as a surgical nurse, Anna secretly treated Allied prisoners, risking her life. By 1945, she'd witnessed immense trauma but never anticipated becoming a prisoner herself. On April 23, 1945, Anna stayed behind to care for wounded German soldiers as American forces advanced, expecting brutality based on Nazi propaganda. And she was instead met by overworked American medics desperate for skilled help. Major William Harrison, the division's chief medical officer, made a bold move. Recognizing Anna's exceptional surgical training and English skills, gained from treating Allied airmen, he broke protocol, enlisting her to work under guard in the schoolhouse hospital, treating both American and German patients. Anna agreed, preferring to save lives over an uncertain fate in a POW camp. For 3 days, she excelled, assisting surgeries and sharing German medical techniques. Then, on April 26, an urgent case arrived. Eleanor Patterson, the pregnant wife of Brigadier General Robert Patterson, who had defied regulations to join her husband in Germany. In premature labor and hemorrhaging, Eleanor needed immediate care, but the nearest obstetric hospital was 100 miles away. Major Harrison, a battlefield surgeon with limited childbirth experience, recalled Anna's obstetric training. Despite the political risks of a German POW delivering an American general's baby, Anna stepped up, saying, "Baby," and not wait for politics. With experience from 50 births and 17 wartime deliveries, she was the best hope. For 6 grueling hours, Anna managed Eleanor's breech delivery, controlling bleeding and repositioning the baby with skill that stunned the American staff. Singing German lullabies to calm Eleanor, Anna bridged their language barrier with humanity. At 3:47 a.m. on April 27, Robert Patterson Jr. was born healthy, in a moment that erased enemy lines. As Major Harrison noted, 2 enemies discovered they were just 2 mothers. News of the birth spread, complicating matters. General Patterson, initially furious about his wife's presence, faced a quandary how to punish a POW who saved his family. Eleanor, bonded with Anna, refused to let her be transferred to a POW camp. Against regulations, Anna stayed for 42 days as Eleanor's nurse and the baby's caretaker, forming a deep friendship. They shared stories, music, and dreams, dismantling propaganda's lies about each other's nations. Military rules eventually forced Anna's transfer in June 1945, but Eleanor maintained contact, sending care packages to Anna's family in Munich. In 1947, Eleanor helped Anna secure a job at an American-sponsored hospital and later advocated for her immigration to the U.S. In 1952, Anna arrived in New York. Greeted by Eleanor and 7-year-old Robert Jr. settling in Pennsylvania, Anna worked as a nurse, becoming Aunt Anna to the Patterson family. and their friendship lasted until Eleanor's death in 1983, with Anna passing in 1987, surrounded by Pattersons. Robert Gender, speaking at Anna's funeral, said, "And heroism isn't about uniforms, it's about helping when help is needed." Anna's story shows how compassion can triumph over division, and reminding us that shared humanity prevails in our darkest moments. If you have stories of wartime kindness, and share them below to preserve these fading accounts. Subscribe for more stories of ordinary people doing extraordinary things in World War II. And let's pick up where Anna Weber's story left off and explore how her remarkable journey continued to ripple through the lives of those around her, and challenging perceptions and leaving a lasting legacy. If you haven't already, and please subscribe and like this video to support more untold stories like this one. After Anna Weber arrived in the United States in 1952, and her life took on a new chapter that was as extraordinary as her wartime experiences. Settling in Pennsylvania, and she began working at a Veterans Administration hospital, treating American soldiers who had fought in the very war that had once made her a prisoner. And her presence was a quiet revolution. And colleagues whispered about the German nurse who had delivered an American general's baby under impossible circumstances, and her reputation for skill and compassion grew. Anna didn't just treat patients. She listened to their stories, shared fragments of her own, and became a bridge between two nations still healing from the wounds of conflict. For the Patterson family, Anna was more than a nurse or a friend, and she was family. Robert Patterson Gender, the baby she delivered, grew up with her as a constant presence. Holidays were spent together, and with Anna teaching the Patterson children German folk songs and sharing tales of Munich's pre-war beauty. And she spoke of her father's love for literature and her own dreams of teaching, dreams she'd set aside during the war. In return, Eleanor Patterson introduced Anna to American culture, baseball games, 4th of July barbecues, and the music of Ella Fitzgerald. And these moments wove their lives together, creating a bond that transcended the chaos of their first meeting. But Anna's influence extended beyond the Pattersons. At the hospital, she became a mentor to younger nurses, and teaching them techniques she'd honed in wartime field hospitals. Her ability to remain calm under pressure, and a skill forged in the crucible of bombed-out German cities, earned her respect. And she also advocated for better care for veterans struggling with psychological wounds, a topic often ignored in the 1950s. And her experiences treating traumatized soldiers in Germany gave her insight into what would later be recognized as PTSD, and she pushed for compassion in an era when mental health was stigmatized. In the broader community, Anna's story challenged lingering prejudices, and the early 1950s were a time when anti-German sentiment still simmered in America. Yet, Anna's quiet dignity and undeniable heroism forced those around her to reconsider their assumptions. And neighbors who initially viewed her with suspicion soon invited her to community events, moved by her warmth and the story of her courage. And she became a living testament to the idea that humanity could overcome the divisions of war. Meanwhile, Anna and Eleanor's friendship deepened through letters and visits. When Eleanor faced health challenges in the 1960s, Anna was there, and offering the same steady presence she'd shown in that schoolhouse in 1945. When Anna's father passed away in Munich, Eleanor sent funds to help cover funeral costs, a gesture that mirrored the care packages she'd sent years earlier. Their correspondence, preserved by the Patterson family, reveals two women grappling with the complexities of their shared history, discussing everything from raising children to the Cold War's new tensions. Robert Patterson Jr. grew into a man shaped by Anna's influence. As a teenager, he wrote school essays about her, calling her his second mother, and a hero who proved that courage knows no nationality. When he pursued a career in medicine, inspired partly by Anna's example, she was his biggest cheerleader. At his college graduation in 1967, Anna sat in the front row, and her pride evident as she clapped for the boy she'd brought into the world. Later, as a doctor, Robert specialized in obstetrics, and a nod to the night that defined his life. The friendship between Anna and Eleanor lasted until Eleanor's death in 1983, and Anna was devastated but continued to be a presence in the Patterson family's life, attending Robert Ginger's wedding and later holding his own children. She never sought the spotlight, but her story spread quietly, shared by the Pattersons and hospital colleagues. In 1985, a local newspaper ran a feature on Anna and titled "The Nurse Who Defied a War," prompting letters from veterans and their families who had similar stories of unexpected kindness during the conflict. And when Anna passed away in 1987, surrounded by 3 generations of Pattersons, her funeral was a celebration of a life that had bridged worlds. Dr. and Robert Patterson Jr., now a respected physician, delivered a eulogy that moved the room to tears, and Anna taught me that heroism isn't about grand gestures or the right flag. It's about seeing someone in need and acting, no matter the cost. And she gave me life, and then she gave me a lesson in what it means to live. Anna's legacy didn't end with her death, and the Patterson family established a nursing scholarship in her name at a local college, supporting students who, like Anna, and showed compassion and skill in the face of adversity. Robert Jr. became an advocate for international medical exchange programs, and inspired by Anna's ability to connect across cultures. Her story was even taught in a Pennsylvania high school history class, and part of a curriculum on the human side of World War II. And what makes Anna Weber's story so powerful is its reminder that individual acts of compassion can ripple outward, challenging hatred and reshaping lives. And in 1945, she and Eleanor Patterson saw past the labels of enemy to recognize shared humanity. Their friendship, born in a moment of crisis, and became a beacon for others, proving that even in the darkest times, connection is possible. And if you have stories of wartime compassion, perhaps from a family member who encountered kindness from an unexpected source, please share them in the comments. And these stories are fading with time, and they deserve to be remembered. Subscribe for more accounts of ordinary people who did extraordinary things. And let's keep these lessons alive. What's another story from history's shadows that you'd like to hear? Let us know below. Anna Weber's passing in 1987 marked the end of an extraordinary life, but her story was far from over. The Patterson family, and particularly Dr. Robert Patterson Jr., ensured that her legacy lived on, not just as a personal memory, but as a beacon for others. And Anna's life had shown that compassion could transcend even the deepest hatreds, and Robert was determined to share that truth with a world that still needed it. If you're new to this incredible tale, please subscribe and like to support more stories like this one. In the years following Anna's death, Robert Jr. became a tireless advocate for her values, and as an obstetrician in Pennsylvania, he carried forward Anna's approach to medicine's steady hands, a calm presence, and an unwavering focus on the human being in front of him. He often told his patients about the German nurse who delivered him in a war-torn schoolhouse, and using a story to remind them that trust and kindness can emerge in the unlikeliest places. And his practice became known not just for its medical excellence, but for its warmth, and with patients describing Robert as a doctor who listened as much as he healed. And the nursing scholarship established in Anna's name grew into a cornerstone of the local community. By the early 1990s, it had supported dozens of young nurses, many of whom went on to work in underserved areas or conflict zones. One recipient, Maria Gonzalez, credited the scholarship with enabling her to train as a nurse and later volunteer in refugee camps in the Balkans during the Yugoslav wars. And I read about Anna Weber in the application process. Maria said in a 1995 interview, "Her courage made me believe I could make a difference, and even in the worst places." The scholarship wasn't just funding education, it was planting seeds of Anna's compassion in new generations. Robert Ginder, and also worked to preserve Anna's story through public speaking. In 1990, he was invited to a World War II veterans reunion in Philadelphia, and where he shared the tale of the German nurse who saved his life. The room, filled with men who had fought on both sides of the war, fell silent, and a former American soldier approached Robert afterward, tears in his eyes, and shared his own story of a German civilian who had hidden him from the Gestapo in 1944. And another veteran recalled a German medic who treated his wounds after a battle, defying orders to prioritize his own troops. And Anna's story unlocked a flood of memories, proving that her experience wasn't an outlier, but part of a hidden tapestry of humanity woven through the war. And this realization inspired Robert to collaborate with a historian, Dr. Sarah Klein, to collect and publish stories of wartime compassion. Their 1994 book, Beyond the Battlefield, Stories of Humanity in World War II, included Anna's story alongside dozens of others, tales of soldiers, civilians, and prisoners who chose kindness over enmity. The book became a modest success, used in college history courses, and even translated into German. In Munich, and where Anna was born, a local newspaper ran an article about her, prompting her surviving relatives to reconnect with the Pattersons. Anna's niece, Clara, visited Pennsylvania in 1996, bringing with her a box of Anna's wartime letters and photographs. These artifacts, now housed in a small museum exhibit at the Veterans Administration Hospital where Anna worked, offered a tangible link to her courage. The exhibit, opened in 1997, became a pilgrimage site for those touched by Anna's story. It featured her nursing tools, a faded photograph of her with the Patterson family, and a letter she wrote to Eleanor in 1953, reflecting on their friendship, and why met in a world that wanted us to hate, but we chose to see each other as sisters. That choice is my greatest pride. Visitors, including veterans, students and nurses, left notes in a guestbook, many sharing how Anna's story inspired them to bridge divides in their own lives. One entry, written by a young German exchange student, read, Anna showed me that my country's past doesn't define me. It's what I do with today that matters. Anna's influence also reached the global stage. In 2000, Robert Ginder was invited to speak at a United Nations conference on post-conflict reconciliation held in Geneva, and he shared Anna's story to illustrate how individual acts of compassion can lay the groundwork for peace. Delegates from war-torn regions, including Rwanda and Bosnia, approached him afterward, struck by the parallels to their own efforts to rebuild trust across divided communities. And Robert quoted Anna's words from 1945, "Baby, not wait for politics," to emphasize that human need often demands action before systems can catch up. And the speech was later published online, sparking discussions on social media platforms like early blogs and forums, and where users shared their own family stories of reconciliation. Back in Pennsylvania, the Patterson family continued to honor Anna through small, personal traditions. Every April 27, Robert Jean's birthday, they gathered to share stories about Aunt Anna, ensuring her memory lived on for her grandchildren who never met her. Robert's daughter, Emily, grew up fascinated by Anna's courage and pursued a career in international aid, working with organizations that provided medical care in conflict zones. In a 2010 interview, Emily said, "I never knew Anna, but her story made me believe that one person can change everything. She's why I do what I do." As the 21st century unfolded, Anna's story found new relevance in a world grappling with polarization and conflict. In 2015, a documentary filmmaker, inspired by Beyond the Battlefield, produced a short film about Anna titled The Nurse of April 45, and it premiered at a film festival in Philadelphia, earning a standing ovation. The film wove together reenactments, interviews with Robert Ginder, and an archival footage of post-war Germany, emphasizing how Anna and Eleanor's friendship challenged the era's propaganda. Social media buzz, and, particularly on platforms like Twitter, amplified the film's reach, with users posting about the power of human connection in times of division. And one tweet read, "Anna Weber's story is a reminder that empathy can heal what war breaks. And we need this now." The documentary also sparked renewed interest in the nursing scholarship, which expanded with donations from viewers. By 2020, and it had funded over 200 nurses, many of whom cited Anna's story as their inspiration. One recipient, a Syrian refugee named Amina, and used the scholarship to train as a nurse in the U.S. and later returned to the Middle East to work in displaced persons camps. And Anna's story gave me hope, Amina wrote in a letter to the Patterson family. She showed me that even in war, you can choose to help, no matter who someone is. Robert Jr., now in his late 70s, continued to share Anna's story until his retirement in 2022. And, at a final lecture at his alma mater, he reflected on its enduring lesson. Anna and my mother didn't see German or American. They saw a woman in pain and a baby in need. That's the choice we're all faced with every day, to see the person, not the label. His words resonated with students, and many of whom were navigating a world of political and cultural divides. And a history professor at the event lated that Anna's story had become a touchstone in her classes and encouraging students to question stereotypes and seek common ground. Today, Anna Weber's legacy lives on in the nurses she inspired, and the story she unlocked, and the family that called her their own. And her life reminds us that even in the darkest moments, whether in a war-torn schoolhouse or a divided modern world, a single act of compassion can ripple across decades, and touching lives far beyond its origin. The Pattersons still keep a photo of Anna on their mantel, and a quiet tribute to the woman who defied a war to bring them together. And if you have stories of compassion from your own family's history, moments when someone chose humanity over division, please share them below. And these accounts are vital, preserving the lessons of those who came before us. Subscribe for more stories of ordinary people doing extraordinary things. And tell us, what other hidden histories would you like us to uncover? Let's keep